Which actually brings me to my jacket. This is.
That is Gordon Tartan.
It is Gordon Tartan. I have taken to wearing it every time I meet Peter Gordon, who is our guest this morning, who I would describe as famous or infamous, depending what you know about him.
Well, I own a tartan, obviously, so that's
you don't look that old, to be fair, but
yeah.
I've known Peter for many years. He was on local radio. I'm going to ask him a few questions. Shall we dive straight in?
Let's go with it.
Obviously, we're in Waverley. You're a local boy, Cranley, just to prove this doesn't happen by accident, the largest town in the UK.
Village.
See, 50% right on the research.
Yeah.
Tell us about growing up in the largest village in the UK.
Well, actually, I went to school in Cranley. I, in fact, was born in Guildford. I was born at Mount Alvernia, which, when they used to have maternity section in it, and it was run by nuns, in fact. 18 years later, I had to go back there for tonsillectomy. And when you come to after that, I remember there was a nun standing at the end of the bed. I thought it was some sort of angel. I was all over the place. And it was the midwife. And she found me out and said, "You don't know me, but 18 years ago," because I was 18 then, supposedly. Anyway, so I was born there and, grew up in Guildford, just opposite Shalford Meadows. Very lucky to went to Cranley School, so I went to Cranley Prep and then Cranley School, which was great. So I was very lucky. I had just a really privileged upbringing. It was in the days when, I don't think you can do it anymore, but you used to be able to take insurance schemes out for public school fees, which my dad did. And he was still paying it back 18 years after I'd left the school. But they don't do it. It was London Life, I think, that did that. They don't do it anymore. But there you go. That's how I was. He got me in there.
So, then you bizarrely went through school. I say bizarrely because you're a very well-educated man. You went to university, and was it politics you studied?
Yeah. Sorry. No, I did. Yeah, sorry, that's right. But I spent all my time in the campus radio station. I was at York, which is a great university. Lots of similarities with Surrey, actually, out of town, all the rest of it. So yeah, it was just one of those things. I mean, the truth is, I've just stumbled into everything. I love that phrase about we sort of accidentally bought Gomshall Mill, which I thought was just nice, But that is sort of, I was talking to someone just now, I wanted to do drama school, because at Cranley they've got a great acting setup and drama setup, still have, it's really good. Michael Redgrave was a teacher at Cranley School back in the 30s, and everything's to do with Michael Redgrave there. So I wanted to go to drama school, chickened out of it, because I didn't have any confidence at all, which you may be surprised about, and ended up stumbling my way to do politics at York, where they had this radio station, which is still going, URY it's called, and it's actually the oldest, because you have to, these university stations have to be licensed, they have to be officially, you have to follow all the Ofcom rules and stuff. It's actually the oldest independent station in the UK. 1967, it was launched by John Peel. And then, so that's where the radio bit started, and that was it really after that.
Well, that's it. You had a long, distinguished radio career, which is hopefully ongoing in many respects.
Maybe.
We'll come on to that. Have you got any? Tell us about your fondest memories of your life in radio. Actually, my fondest memory, before you start, I sat next to you when you were dressed as Brewster Bear. And
Brewster Mouse.
Brewster Mouse, sorry.
That was County Sound.
It was. It was the shortest I ever saw that mouse.
Yeah. Well, that was the only time I ever did that. That was 30-something years ago now.
Shush.
Brewster Mouse, the mascot of County Sound Radio, as it used to be, about 1990, and then 91 it finished, and Radio Mercury. Favourite things about radio? Listen, one of the things, my uncle, who just lived up the road in Guildford, rather bizarrely, but he was just up the road, and he used to run Bird's Eye Walls. He was the chairman, and who my dad worked for as well. But Uncle Ken seemed to be around much more than Dad. As the chairman, I suppose he can be. So I used to go and see him, play football with him in the back garden and things like that. And we sort of grew up quite a lot with him as well as Dad. And he was quite an influence as a result. Sadly, no longer with us. And he gave me one of those, I think for my 18th, he gave me one of those business books by Edward de Bono called Tactics. It's a good book. Haven't read it, but it's a good book. Very small print. You know, and I'm sort of I'm whatever side brain it is. I'm quite a creative sort of, no pictures, a few graphs. And anyway, Ken, knowing that I was never going to read it, on the front, in the inside sort of front cover page, put an asterisk and put page 19 on it. Right. So of course yours is really going, right, hang on. Page 19, asterisk at the end of the line, and then 2 lines underlined from the page. It said, find out what you like doing and then find someone to pay you for doing it. And that's sort of been really where I've been. That's the only career advice I ever give anyone, because that's really what radio's been for me. It's just been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I wouldn't change a thing. I might change a few decisions that I made here and there, but when you're working around here, if you're working in this patch where you grew up and you understand, you know, although I didn't actually know all the nooks and crannies of Farnham, as I've just found out this morning, but hey-ho, all the bits, you can, and it's a privilege. It was an absolute privilege. I worked hard to start off with. Used to make tea for all the newsroom in the old County Sound days, and then got into the sports side, and then it sort of all went on from there. A few lucky breaks here and there, and then Eagle launched in '96, which I was first one on, and stayed with it right the way, pretty much until the end. And it was just brilliant. The commercial side. So I did a tiny little bit of BBC when I was up in York. And then I didn't step inside a BBC station again until the autumn of 2020. So I was commercial all the way through, which also, the thing about Eagle Radio and the thing about good local commercial stations as they were, was they're effectively marketing companies. You know, let's strip away the BS. They're marketing companies with loudspeakers. End of. What you do with that possibility with the loudspeakers is up to you, and if you do the right things and you engage properly and everyone understands the balance. We're a commercial station, so sorry, you need to pay us to advertise, but if you're with us and you're on board with us, by the way, more things will happen. And that's how we used to run it. We were as close to a community commercial setup as we could make it. And the reason we were allowed to do that, we were owned by a company called UKRD, who won the Sunday Times Best Company to Work for 5 years in a row, because we specialised in proper company culture. And I don't mean just words on walls, I mean practice, understanding. Not everyone survived that. Some people had to go because they just couldn't take it. But we went big on company culture, values, which is why I now do a little bit of work around that. And each independent station that was owned by UKRD was allowed to do their own local stuff. So we shared accountants, we shared tech backup, we shared all sorts of stuff, but the actual in the market activity was ours to own. That was the way they worked it. We were run by a board who were with us. Well, you know, there were some people on the board, so it wasn't a equity company or anything. There was a group of individuals put together, including people like John Hepburn, who runs the Guildford Flames. Happened to be chairman of Morgan Stanley Europe as well, which helped. But there were others as well. And so the whole movement, it was different from what happened elsewhere. And we were sort of the last people standing really, when it came to the big mop-up of the big consolidation of commercial radio, which is now effectively run by Global Radio, who do Capital Heart and all that, and Bauer, who took over our side of things in a quite fair business way. You know, people sort of say, "Oh, you must be really angry about it." Well, we live in a capitalist democracy, so that's what happens, and didn't do badly out of it, really. So,
when we've spoken before, you always say, "Paul, I want to talk about Love Tour and what we did."
Yeah, well, it wasn't Love Tour. So, it's all of you, with all the different businesses and organisations and stuff that you run, all have things that you think, how can we get better? How can we get better? Now, whatever that means in your context. Sometimes that means, how can we improve the bottom line? Sometimes it means how can we be more out-facing, all that sort of stuff. One of the things that I was driving at with Eagle particularly, but this did spread around the rest of our group stations. So we launched in '96. We'd taken over the license to broadcast the area from the people that ran Radio Mercury. Radio Mercury was here for a few years. I worked for them for about a year, then went off somewhere else. But and I'm afraid the listenership had been run down completely. We took over relatively small listenership in '96 compared to what County Sound had used to have some years before. Anyway, we got back into it. We started doing it about 4 years later. About 99, 2000, we became the #1 commercial listener in the area. So we overtook Capital in this area and all that sort of stuff. So that was there. I thought, great, there we go, we got that. Then it was right. How do we push on from here? How do we make a difference? How do we, And I was just thinking, what is it we've got that others haven't? All that sort of stuff, all the stuff that you do in businesses. I was in the bath. I do a lot of thinking in the bath. I'm sure it's wonderful for you to know. I was just reading one of these magazines, and the I Love NY, New York I Love NY symbol came up. And I thought, that's really quite, it cuts through, that's nice, you see that quite a lot. So I thought, what about if we did that for here? And that's how it started. And then, so we went from there to I Love Surrey in Hampshire, or We Love Surrey in Hampshire's radio station. Then we did all these stickers. Then our street team, as a promotion team, became the Love Crew. And the whole thing about We Love Surrey in Hampshire became a mission statement, an aspiration, and actually, more importantly, a challenge. Because if you say so, love's a really powerful word. If you look in various research documents about, cut-through words and all that, love is like, Hart used it for years and stuff. But it was a challenge. So you say we love Surrey and Hampshire, you go, well, all right, then prove it. And that's what I used to get. Fantastic. You asked me to prove it, fine. We'll come to yours. Where do you want us to come? We'll come and do da, 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 da. And through many years, it became the driver. And of course, it was the one thing that no one else in our market, because there weren't many other what I call full-time commercial stations against us. We were up against the big boys. For advertising revenue, we had competition from Capital, Hart. In fact, in the Radar, which is a listening survey that they do, there were 63 stations you could tick when you get a diary to go, what do I listen to? And we were consistently in the top 3 of those. In terms of actually cutting through and going, right, okay, this is what we are, this is what we do. It's the one thing no one else could do. Capital couldn't say they love Surrey and Hampshire. They've got too many other people to worry about. Hart, the same. Magic, the same. Absolute, the same. Smooth, the same. The BBC, the same. Radio 2, Radio 4 are 2 big competitors. They couldn't say that. They've got the whole of the country to worry about. So it was the one thing that we had. So I used the local aspect of what we did. And that's why I was saying, we're a local marketing company, and that was everything became that. And then you still see stickers around. Occasionally, you see an I Love PG sticker, but they were hidden from view most of the time. And we did, and it just became the thing that we did, and it all came from just reading that little magazine.
And we always talk when we speak privately about being authentic and being in the room. And how have you taken that on to what you're doing now, and what does what you're doing now, and what will you be doing into the future, and how can we help you?
So that's kind. Help me. So I was on the radio in the mornings for like decades, which was really great. I mean, flipping out, what a laugh. I mean, when I used to do early morning radio, and I was doing panto as well at the same time, people say, "Oh God, how do you do that? You're up at 4 o'clock and you're not getting in bed until 11, and you've got makeup on and all that sort of stuff." I'm going, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? I mean, that's fantastic. I could pay for it. Showing off in the morning and showing off the rest of the day. You know about that, Paul. What? Why wouldn't you? And so that was the premise, really, of everything. And people may or may not have liked the radio show or the radio station that I ran, but the radio show that I ran, which was a character, I believe a lot in characterful stuff, because everyone's got character. They may not know they have, but all of that. And people may not have liked me. I don't care. They may have thought, God, he's a rude. What? Fine. I'll tell you what. Who is it that's rude? Peter Gordon. Fine, great. That's fine. I don't care what you thought. What you couldn't do was say that I didn't, know what was going on in the area. I was here every day, as were my team. We were all there. We had an authenticity, which may not have been everyone's favourite flavour, but it was true. And I always remember thinking, right, when I'm back out of radio world on a full-time basis, I've got to remember that. And that's the way I work now. So you know, I help people with media advice and comms advice. You know, I mean, I was talking to someone earlier and saying, at what point did I ever think I'd be a comms advisor for a planning consultancy? I mean, you know, I'm just a DJ, aren't I? And I think, you know, in the end, everyone's got their own personal brand. However it is that you work and whatever it is that you do, as it so happens, my business is now me, and so my personal brand is important.
It's a big brand.
Thanks very much, Paul. And it's in a nice way. I'm sure you meant that as opposed to any other way. And it's going. So yeah, authenticity and just around the confidence to be. Look, there'll be some people say, actually, do you know? Thanks very much, but no, I'm not interested. But actually, there'll be others that go, do you know? I tell you what. Da, 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 da. And I think keep it real, which is a much used phrase, but that authenticity thing. And I think it also comes from around a certain confidence. You've got Marvel socks on, brilliant. So have I, actually. It comes from a confidence thing, which I think, you know, I don't know. I'm a nervous person. I suffer from anxiety. I have done all my life. I didn't realise I did. I didn't realise I did at all. But I mean, so you know, I've been doing this panto thing in Guildford for 16 years. Did some more before that as well elsewhere. And the first night is always a blur. I have no idea what's going on half the time because I'm so nervous. But the great thing about that is, I think that's great because I now use it as a focuser. I use it as a because I'm a great procrastinator, as Paul knows from my accounts. So I use anything that's anxiety related or whatever the anxiety is these days, because that's also a much used phrase. Whatever it means to you, I use that now as a focuser. And I think that's the other thing is I'm quite happy to talk about it and tell people about it, not because it's a badge, but because actually it helps, funnily enough, now in business. And that's me.
So you've told us about what you're doing in terms of advising people. You've got the pantomime again, but it's also known as my annual wash, because I seem to sit one row from the front. And
yeah. Got you. Well, that's your fault. But you buy the tickets, so I mean, you know, don't. Hey?
Yeah, I had a word with Kit about 2 years ago. I still don't think he's forgiven me, but that's a different story. Still doing a bit on V2 radio?
Oh yeah. I do like an 80s show. It was nice. So out of the demise of the UKRD stations, of which we all were part of, Spirit FM was the one down in Sussex that was a sister station of Eagle. And that obviously got taken in with the Bauer stuff, but some of the gang down there got together and started up with the help of a brother duo of good business sense. They come out of Brighton, actually. So V2 Radio was born, whenever it was, and they just said to me, "Do you want to come and do something?" I said, "Well, yeah, but I need to be able to record it remotely because I'm not driving down to Cheshire all the time." And so I've got an 80s show that I do every week, which I can do. I mean, it's fantastic. This is the great stuff. This is the great stuff for radio that happened in the pandemic, is that we all really properly learned how to do remote broadcasting. And tech companies got pretty savvy pretty quick. I mean, I was, for the last 17 weeks of Eagle Radio, which was right in that first lockdown, I was in the living room every morning, the dining room table with virtually the radio station set up in front of me. It was amazing. And now you can just plug into a laptop, converter box, microphone, as long as you've got good acoustics around you, and then you can do what you like, really. And you dial in on this technical, and the play-out systems are various different ones you can use. You have little slots that you go into, and yeah, that's quite fun.
So, I mean, my open-ended question to you towards the end of these is, what does the future hold for Peter Gordon?
Well, so personally, I'm expecting a little girl with my wife in March, which has been a very long time coming. Very long time coming. And so that clearly is going to be the new priority, that whole situation and her and everything. So that's already started putting a few things in perspective. The rest of it is I'll just keep getting away with it, really. That's what I feel I've been doing for like decades now, really. And you know, being open and chatting and talking and finding out if there's anything I can help with the stuff that I've done. I found one of the things that I can do a bit of is facilitate stuff between people, because you know, you get to know, you do 30 years in local radio in a particular area, particularly commercial, obviously you get to know people. And I just found, oh, sorry, so you don't know that? Oh, okay. And you know, as you guys do in these sort of situations. So yeah, I'll just keep pushing it and see how far I get.
So assuming you get away with it for a bit longer,
yeah.
If anybody wants to contact you, what's the best way to get hold of you?
So it's petergordon.uk online, petergordon.uk. There's a contact form on there and stuff, and you can just get in touch with me there.
Well, let's see how bad a job I've done. Has anybody got any questions for Peter?
I'll probably talk them out, to be honest.
We got one. Get offered jobs from higher radio like
So when 5 Live, which is my station of choice, so that's the thing. When you worked in music radio, you never listened to music radio. Trust me on that. So I've been listening to speech radio, and I love speech radio for years. I've even started listening to Radio 4 on a Saturday morning, which is, I think that might be an age. Anyway, so I went for an interview. When 5 Live started, it was called Radio 5 in those days, creatively. And apart from the only time I've ever been nicked by a speed camera on my way to the interview, it was massive. I mean, ended up being, it was one of the biggest BBC boards. They don't call them interviews, they call them boards. And I was in some massive flipping room near Broadcasting House, and people giving this questionnaire. Anyway, I didn't get very far. No, I didn't really go looking either. You know, this was a full-time gig where I was doing, and it was a business gig. It wasn't just the whole radio, being on radio. It was everything else behind. And that's what I do now. I do all the other bits that we were doing anyway, that you'd never saw or heard. And I didn't really go looking. I cropped up on there as, I remember Nicky Campbell interviewed me on 5 Live when we did that ridiculous thing in about 1999, when no one would play Cliff Richard, around that Millennium Prayer time. Chris Evans did a big thing about it. So we did a day of playing Cliff Richard. We called it Over the Cliff. And which that was my slightly balmy idea. And we made national radio with that. So I ended up being on, so, you know, why on earth are you doing that? Well, you're talking about it, aren't you? So there you go. Win.
Anyone else?
I think we have one in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I always go to pantomime each year.
Oh, no, you don't. Yeah.
The days when you do 3 performances in a row, at the end of the 3rd performance, how on earth do you drag yourself with that 3rd one? Because it must be absolute killer. You're doing like, if you do, especially the bit with the ghosts and stuff like that, if you're doing that 3 times a day, it must be rather extraordinary. Like a half of folks.
Fit for panto is the phrase you are.
So yeah. So well, it's a bit like what I said earlier. Yeah, but I mean, flipping heck, there's other people who have to sit on the M25 for 2 hours each day. I would say that's far more drawing, really. Look, don't get me wrong. You're right. At the end of the day, you are done. Seriously done. But what a great way to be done. So that's how I approach it. And actually, in fairness, you know, in the acting fraternity, or whatever it may be, that's how people, everyone goes, oh, 3 show day, oh, 3 show day. But, you know, we just get through it. Maybe with some donuts occasionally. And, which I've really got to stop. I've got to stop doing that. So, yeah, but do you know, it's commitment. So people say, oh, is it hard work? No, it's a commitment. So you're there, you're not going anywhere. You're going to be in that theatre for 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is. Fine. That's what you do, and you commit to it, and you do it. And that's also the way we used to run the station, radio station. That was, you know, it's fine. If you don't want to be here now, that's okay. Let's look at how that works for you and stuff. But I tell you what, everyone in here, we want you 100%. Because that's what it is, because actually it's a privilege to be doing it. And that's the same with that. That's all.
Go on, Clive.
One of my pet hates is playlists. Now, I'm kind kind of wondering, is our playlist on there because it's about the royalty cost, or is it just about absolute brand consistency? God forbid that anyone should go off piece. Because you hear the same song again and again, and it's just, if you listen during the day, and it's just like, come on, you know, the DJs are there for a reason, but they're not DJs. They seem to be programmed so much.
Yeah. It's really boring, isn't it?
Yeah, awful.
So I used to dislike pretty much most of the music we played on Eagle. I very rarely used to get, sorry, you wouldn't hear that, but here I very rarely get excited about anything used to pop up. I'll be honest. I mean, yeah, so that's the truth on that. Playlists are very much a thing. They are targeted, they are put carefully together. Even the BBC, at very late stage, have decided to do that across local radio. You know, when I first popped up a couple of years ago, you could choose what you liked, pretty much. U2 was popping up all the time. It's fantastic. Anyway, can't do that now. They've done that whole thing, which they've done in commercial radio for years. So, all I would say to that is, in commercial radio, so I think it's a different ball game for public service broadcasting and community broadcasting. We used to have to be very careful about what sort of music we played because of who we were trying to target so that we could get advertisers. And also, the truth is this, much as people like I would like to sit there and go, you're hanging on my every word, everything I say, you know, I know you're listening. No, they weren't. They were listening probably in the morning, 20-minute bursts at best. Sometimes stuck in the car. That was, of course, in-car listening, huge thing, by the way, which is why DAB is still a real problem. Because as you know, if you listen on DAB in cars, you could be driving through. In fact, I lost DAB down by the sports centre, going around the one way. That's no good. And I mean, there was a whole switchover thing. I don't know if you remember, they were going to turn off FM for everyone. I used to argue. I was sent in to London as the representative of the group to argue with all the big boys about why that shouldn't happen because of exactly what's now happening. So in-car listening is important. So, but people would listen in segments. So you had to hit them on the right stuff. So we used to repeat a lot of content on breakfast. You know, when I learnt all around that, I thought, God, this is a bit flipping easy, but it's true because you used to hit people in different segments. And that's really what music playlisting is about. So Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer, right? If you went and put that, if we did a music auditorium test now, is what the Australians call it, auditorium mate, and we all sat in here and I gave you 30 clips of songs, okay? It's including some of those ones you say, oh, I'll never hear those on radio. But I do, you know, and but in the context of listening, an old flipping Bon Jovi comes up, living on number one every time. Only because it gets a consistency. Probably wouldn't be your favourite, but it would maybe be in your top 5 from the choice that I gave you. And that's enough for it to be. Every single flipping time we used to test music, as they call it. We used to do a thing called Soundcheck online where people can do it. I'm pleased to see that V2 actually have started doing a similar thing now. And yeah, Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer.
Any more for any more? Okay. I would play Billy Joel, Uptown Girl at this juncture.
Yeah, well, that was the first one that was played on Eagle.
It was also the last one by a lot of DJs.
Well, yeah, 4th of January, 96. And that was entirely by accident. There was no music research in that, let me tell you, and I'll tell you why, because I was there. So 7:45 that morning, there we were in North Street. It was North Street in Guildford where we were those days. And I had to launch the station. And the then chief exec, we had all the dignitaries and the mayors and MPs, and they're all outside. And I was there, yours truly, in the studio. Right, okay. Ready. What am I going to say? Oh, I'm going to say this. Okay. There's no music. I'm looking down my screen. There's no music. So I shouted, this good old high-tech radio, I shouted out the door to Mike, the chief executive. Mike, first song? He went, with champagne glass in hand, Billy Joel, Uptown Girl. There you go, that's why that happened. So no research there at all. I have no idea why he picked it. Don't think I ever actually asked him. No idea where that came from.
It was noticeable when Eagle came to its end, especially the morning DJs as they sort of moved on their way.
Tapered off.
They played that. Almost all of them was their last record.
Yeah. I played the Beatles, The End.
I know.
Which was a great little track.
which is where we've reached, Peter. I'm going to shake your hand. Thank you for coming.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Thank you for coming down. If anyone here hasn't made their donation to Phyllis Tutwell, come find me at the end because I will be chasing anyone out of the room. What have we got coming up at the moment? So we are looking towards Christmas, as I think everyone is in this area, and we've got some great opportunities coming up. We're also looking forward to the World Cup. So we've put together a sweepstake pack. So if anyone wants to do a friendly office sweepstake with any of their colleagues, let me know and I can send you all the things you need to make it as easy as possible for you. We've got a wall chart, we've got all the team sheets, you can cut everything out. Super easy. So we can send that across to you. We also have our sponsor our lights, sponsor our stars still going on, where we're going to put some stars over the hospice. We've got 7. I think we've sold 1 or 2 of them, so now there's 5. Easy maths. And we are basically, if you want to get involved with that, you can sponsor a star, and what we'll do is we'll have on our website all the companies that were sponsored, and we'll provide you with all the digital assets to tell your suppliers or your staff what you have done with the donation as well. And then lastly, we've got Santa runs coming up in Farnborough. That's going to be fun. That's around the 11th of December. And we do have our Christmas online auction coming up. So if anyone does fancy donating a nice little bottle of wine or chocolates that we might then make into a hamper and sell online, please do let me know or drop it off at the hospice and we'll be able to do that.
When do you need that by, Tom?
We need that by the 20th of November, I believe. There we are. Thank you very much.